Welcome, everyone. I am Elizabeth Yoder with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support. I am covering for my colleague, Jordan Johnson for today. I wanted to take a moment to welcome everyone to the Apprenticeship Illinois webinar series. Today's session is working with high impact intermediaries and community colleges. This webinar is a special encore presentation of Marcy and Terry's session at our Apprenticeship Illinois Bootcamp, which took place last week in Joliet. Before we dive into the presentations, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping notes to ensure a smooth experience for all attendees. First, please note that this webinar will be recorded and will be posted on the Apprenticeship Illinois website later this week. We encourage you to stay on mute to minimize distractions during the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to enter them into the chat or Q&A, and we will do our best to address those questions at the end of the webinar as time allows. Lastly, there will be a survey after the webinar concludes, and we will greatly appreciate your feedback to help us improve future events and let us know if the content was helpful to your work. We do have a poll here that I will launch. So if you could take a couple of seconds to answer those questions. All right, we will go ahead and get started with our presentation for today.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcy Johnson, and I am the Director for Career and Technical Education at the Illinois State Board of Education.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Stroh. I'm the EFE Director for Northern Kane County, northwest suburbs of Chicago.
Thank you all for joining us today, and I see we're here from all across the state, so that's great. That's exciting. So before we get started, I just want you to take a second and think about the where you're at today and how you got to where you're at today. And who helped you to get where you're at? Was it a parent? Was it a teacher? Was it a school counselor? Were you able to explore some areas that you could learn about before you experienced it? Or how many jobs did you change before you got to the job you're at now? And is there things you wish you knew then that you know now? And one of the things that we talk about for Career Tech Ed is we're there to help those students think things through, give them supports, think of a career plan, and experience different types of careers so that they're able to be able to get into something that they really enjoy. Next slide. So for some people, you've probably heard of career and technical education, but it used to be called maybe voc ed or vocational education. We've changed the term and it is now career and technical education. And one of the things about career and technical education is that it is designed to focus on both academic and technical skills and knowledge. So as students go in, they're learning to apply their math and their science and their English in their career and technical education programs as well. And it's looking to prepare those students, and we focus on the high wage, the high skill, and the in-demand careers that we have in the state. Next slide. The purpose purpose of career and technical education, as I was saying, this has the academic content and the technical knowledge and skills, but it also has applied learning where the students have had classes and they've learned things and now they're applying what they've learned. It also includes employability skills, and we'll hear a lot from businesses and industry that say we need people who have those employability skills. And so this is one of the areas where we try to make sure that that's included. It also is coordinating secondary and post-secondary programs. So there is an opportunity to go on to college if that's something that they want to do, and they can follow the program that they're in into college. It could also be that we're preparing them to go into a career right out of school and then maybe come back and go to a post-secondary. So this is also one of the benefits of career and technical education in that secondary, to help them determine a path. It also allows for career exploration. So we can go down as low as 5th grade for career exploration. Actually, we can go down to kindergarten level if we want, in order to support career and technical education for all students. Next slide. We are funded by a federal grant called Perkins 5. And every 4 years, we have to write a state plan. And I wanted to share our goals with you because I wanted you to see that CTE should not be siloed away from workforce. It is part of workforce. And as you can see in goal 1, we talk about, the post-secondary certificates or degree, but also industry recognized credentials. We also look at goal 2, where we're looking to improve access between education and workforce. There is an opportunity to get dual credit in CTE. We look at how we can be responsive to the labor market need based on what the state workforce needs and employer input. We are working to recruit and retain pipeline of CTE educators. We want to grow career and tech ed, and the only way to do that is to get more educators into the field. Also, we offer work-based learning opportunities for all students, and that's what we want, is students to take what they've learned in the classroom and applying it out in the field. And if you see these slides, there's a link here to our Perkins 5 state plan if you would like to look at it closer. Next slide. In the Illinois report card, which is a link here, we have performance measures and data that talks about what career tech ed, how it's performing in the state. This is the data that we have for participants and concentrators. First, a participant is a student who takes one or more courses that are CTE. A concentrator is a student who takes 2 or more courses within a single program of study. So as you can see here, we're growing. In 2022, we were at 266,000. In 2023, we're at 278. And in 2024, I expect us to be higher for participants, and the same for concentrators. Next slide. This is just an example of some of the things that you can do inside the Illinois report card. You can look at the number of participants and concentrators within a specific area. So I chose manufacturing here. You can also see the demographics. So you can see of the students between the participants and the concentrators. And in this particular case, I just chose between male and female that are engaged in manufacturing. You can even go deeper on these demographics and look at special populations and look at English learners, homeless students, students with disabilities. So there's a variety of ways to manipulate this data to have you understand, the effects that career and technical education has had. These are our performance measures. So for Perkins 5, we had to have performance measures that could say how we are improving in the state. You'll see on this chart, there's a green line. That was the target that we told the U.S. Department of Ed that we would like to achieve. Then you will see the number that has a percentage that's either blue or green, or in some cases it could be red. But at the state level, we don't have any that are red. The blue level means that we made it within 90%. The green means we met or exceeded our target. And then if you saw a red, it would mean that we were less than 90% in our measurement. I just want to explain a little bit about the performance measures. We do have 4-year graduation rate and extended graduation rate. We also have academic proficiency in reading, math, and science. These are based on what students achieved on the SAT or now the ACT tests. So it's a 1 point in time in their junior or sometimes senior year when they take this test. The post-program placement is where is a student 6 months after they graduate from high school. It could be in a college. It could be in a job. It could be military. It could be in a service like the AmeriCorps or the Peace Corps. We're not able to collect the military and the Peace Corps yet, but we are now finally pulling information on employment and for college. And so our numbers have really gone up to know where a student is at when they graduate from high school. The non-traditional programs are programs where the gender is 25% or more, such as a female welder, a male nurse. We also have attainment of post-secondary credits, which would be dual credits. And then we have work-based learning. And in the work-based learning, we're growing and learning how to collect that data. We used to have just classes for work-based learning, but we've learned that many of the areas have work-based learning embedded in their courses. And so we're working to pull that data so that we have the information that we need. Okay, so we have a crosswalk here. We have college and career pathway endorsements, which are these 7 big areas on this slide. You will see on the right side, you will see that that we have 16 career clusters, and actually there's 17 because we added energy to our career cluster area. And hopefully all of you will be able to see, if you're in a business or an industry, where you fall. This should cover just about every area of careers that we have in the nation. Next slide. So we have a work-based learning continuum, and you'll see here there are many components of a work-based learning continuum, starting with career awareness, career exploration, team-based challenges, career development experiences, pre-apprenticeships, and apprenticeships. You will see as the scales down, it'll start out that the school district or the community college is more engaged. And as we get to apprenticeships and youth apprenticeships, now we have more of a business being engaged in the work-based learning continuum. And we have an Illinois Career Pathways Dictionary, which there's a link here, that all of the state agents, or 4 of the state agencies voted on, and we're all using the same language. So if you're wondering what something means, this is a great place to go and see. Next slide. Okay. So here's some different types of workplace learning experiences. We talked a little bit about youth apprenticeships and internships, but this also includes student-led enterprises or school-based enterprises where students can do entrepreneurships like a t-shirt company or a food service to the school or to the community. There's the ag supervised agriculture experiences. This is the clinical experiences where, like in CNA, when they go out and they actually go on the job to the hospital. So there's a variety of ways for students to experience different types of work out in the field. Next slide. Here is some of the examples of these career awareness, career exploration, and workplace experiences. Under the career awareness, these are the opportunities for career days, career fairs, an opportunity to do a service learning opportunity. Businesses come in and do guest speakers. They can do a lunch and learn with the students. When we talk about career exploration, now the students are going out to the business. It could be a work site tour. It could be job shadowing. It could be mentorship. Career and technical student organization, which is a great way for students to really learn leadership skills as well as about their specific area. These are things such as FFA, Skills USA, HOSA. There's 3 business student organizations. So there's a lot of opportunities for students to engage in that. And then we have the workplace experience. And this is where businesses really get engaged. This is where they can be involved with student-led enterprises or school-based enterprises, helping to mentor students on starting their own business. Here's the supervised ag that we've just talked about, the clinical experiences, internships, and apprenticeships. And you can see how the employer engagement, that's great. Then you can see how the employer engagement grows. So with this red box, that's where the highest level of employer engagement is with the schools and the career and tech ed programs. Next slide. I wanted to share with you a little bit about a team-based challenge. You may hear from from a school district that they need help with a team-based challenge. A team-based challenge is giving a group of students a problem or a challenge from your business, and then the students try to figure out the answer to that. There might not be an answer to it. There might be multiple answers to it. And the goal is with this is you just give them the problem and you let them figure out how to solve it. And then they present to you the outcome. And this is in many cases proven very beneficial for some businesses in what the students came up with as a result of their team-based challenge. Next slide. So I talked a little bit about the career pathway endorsements, and I just want to kind of explain a little bit to you about what that consists of. So districts have to submit their plan to us, and we approve it. It includes an individual plan that the students have to have. There's professional learning, which is what we call the work-based learning. There's an academic readiness piece where they have a 3.2 grade point average plus there's ACT or SAT, AP classes, and then there's also career and tech ed focused instruction. And then all of these things come together. And when they participate in this, then they can get an endorsement on their license or their transcript. And this tells an employer that this student is college and career ready. Next slide. So how can you benefit from career pathways? And Nate, you'll just have to keep tapping on this. So career pathway endorsements are quality. You know that the student has spent time and has learned a lot. There's academics. You know that the academics is in there, and you know that they're getting knowledge of a specific pathway. If it's business or if it's manufacturing, that they're getting knowledge in that specific area. They are getting the technical skills. So they are learning how to go out into the field and use a certain piece of equipment, or they're learning how to, do books. There's a lot of different ways that these technical skills are coming around. They're getting credentials. Sometimes employers say, oh, we're not worried about the credentials. But if you take a step back and you think about, if you're looking for somebody to fill a position for forklift, and a student comes in with a forklift credential, and then they come in and somebody else comes in without it, you would find that the person with the credentials you would want, because they have just that much more experience and knowledge for you to train them. Work-based learning, you know that they've gone out into the field and they have experienced what it's like to work in a certain business area and have some experience and background knowledge. And like I said, and then they have that experience that proves them to be beneficial and to be more opportunities within your business. And then what I want to share with you also is the fact that we have a database, and it's a work-based learning database that talks about employer champions. These are businesses that are working with school districts, and they are providing different types of work-based learning opportunities in different career clusters. And all of those that I indicated earlier would be a type of work-based learning. And so if you know of a business that is working with schools, encourage them to click this link in the upper left-hand corner of this page, and they would be able to put in the information and how they're working. Currently, we have 165 businesses that are on our list. And this is just a way for us to highlight the great work that you're doing and how you're helping to grow your program as well as our program in the state. So I'm going to pause there for a second before I talk about this, but is there any questions that we need to address, or Nate, do we want to wait till the end?
We can wait till the end. Thank you, Marcy.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So before I toss it over to Terry, I just want to show this map to you. We have the way we are funded with federal funds and state funds, and we are a consortia state. And so in a consortia state, we have 53 education for employment CTE systems. And you will see them all indicated here, and they're in 7 regions of the state. And what we do is they have so many school districts that are tied to them, and we flow the funds through the EFE, and they give the money to the districts, or they help the districts with the purchasing of supplies, equipment, professional development. And the EFE system is a system that supports the districts and gets the districts what they need and the support in offering career and technical education. So what I'm going to do now is toss it over to Terry Stroh, who is an Education for Employment CTE director, and he's going to tell you what he does on his end and how we tie that all together.
Thank you, Marcy. Good afternoon, everyone. As Marcy said, I'm Terry Stroh. I'm the EFE director in Northern Kane County. My job is really to work with our school districts on many different facets here. One being their curriculum, going over which classes we offer, what are the credentials we're looking to offer within those classes, what are the skill sets working to offer in those classes. We also then look at all of our data. Every 4 years, we're required to do a comprehensive local needs assessment. So we look at all of our job markets, all of our courses. Do our courses align with what the job market in our areas are currently looking at? And what are the value in the livable wage for those markets as well? So making sure that our students are headed in the right direction to receive a livable minimum wage at some point during their career. And then we also have both full-time EFE directors and part-time EFE directors. And then we have some EFE directors that are both career center directors and the EFE director at the same time. So for all of us, it's either managing individual districts or managing career centers or managing regional programs. In my region, we actually have regional programs where we have students moving from high school to high school in between districts to receive classes that they couldn't receive in their home districts. The next piece, manager of all of our grant funding. So our state CTEI grant funds, our federal Perkins grant funds, or any other grant opportunities that may come up. Examples would be like the MET grant that's out there for manufacturing through ISB, or we had a college career pathway endorsement coordinator grant opportunity that's getting ready to finish up this year, and working through all those grants, making sure that our districts are spending all of those funds according to all the rules. So make sure they're approved expenditures, make sure we're buying the right things, asking them to explain to us how their purchases are aligning to the needs in their CTE programs. The next piece, we liaison with the community college. So in my region, I work very closely with our community college there, with the deans there and the president of the community college on all things dual credit and how we're trying to organize either dual credit in our high schools or having students go over to the community college for dual credit and working through all those as a part of that college career pathway endorsement requirement. And then the next piece is a liaison between the schools and the industry and our industry partners. What we had heard in our region is that with 11 high schools in our very small region, geographically small, I should say, we have about 22,000 high school students across the region. Industry partners were tired of receiving multiple phone calls from multiple teachers from multiple school buildings. So they wanted a one-stop shop as far as a liaison to coordinate those. This also helps out for those people when you're reaching out to schools. The principal, the assistant principals, they may not be the best person to contact for career tech ed. The EFE director would be able to help share with you anybody who would be the best person to get in contact with to help form these partnerships there. It's worked out well in our region. We've grown from about 150 business partners 5 years ago to now over 1,200 business partners by really managing that throughout my office. You go to the next slide. Ways that we go ahead and support workforce development really starts all the way in middle school with our career exploration events. Last week, one of my districts hosted what they called the Explore event for 8th grade students to come in, and they have all of their CTE programs set up around an arena, along with business partners representing those CTE areas, to where students can talk to the teachers about what's required, but then also talk to the businesses about what they require for education to get started in those career fields. Coming up then later this month, we're doing Manufacturing Month tours. So right now we have over 500 students going to go out and visit 21 different manufacturing businesses across our region to help kind of give students an idea of what those careers are available within our area. Career development, so watching over all of our CTE classes, helping to manage our advisory boards. As a part of our quality indicators for CTE programs, we have to have advisory boards. So we're hearing from industry on what skill sets they are looking for and making sure that we have embedded those skill sets into our curriculum. And then also talking to them about industry certifications. And this is one that Marcy brought up before with, what is the proper industry certification? And we hear so many times from industry partners that, well, don't worry about the industry certification. Just go ahead and send me someone who's going to show up all the time. They're going to be able to pass a drug test and they're going to be reliable. And really, when we start looking at our programs, one of the quality indicators is, do we have the right industry certifications being offered? So for our automotive programs, we have ASE. And everyone's probably seen that blue ASE logo when you go to take your car to get fixed at the different shops. Many shops won't tell you that while they don't need the ASE credential to work there, that if a student has ASE credentials, they actually move them up higher on the pay scale. So if a student went to go work for a Chevy dealer and they had 0 ASE credentials and they decided to switch over to a Toyota dealer or somebody else, they don't take those experiences with them from the Chevy to the Toyota dealer. But if they have ASE credentials, those carry on with them no matter which manufacturer they decide to go work for. So it's really important for students' futures as far as being able for mobility and for their pay scale growth there. The next piece, career guidance. So working with our students, as I said, with different tours or the different career fairs to try to show them what we have. Tomorrow, let's see, today is Tuesday. So Thursday, we are going out to our local university for students that want to go into education, and they are having an opportunity to get career guidance from the university on how to become a teacher. And then staff professional development, going ahead and setting up professional development on different topics, whether it's career oriented, where we have industry partners come in and educate our teachers on what is the next steps within the industry, what's the new technology being used, things like that. We also have counselors then go out as well, trying to educate counselors. What we had found in my region and in many other regions is that counselors were really good students when they were in high school. They went on to become teachers or counselors through college, and then they went right back into a high school setting as a guidance counselor or a school counselor. So giving them an opportunity to get out and see different industry partners and see the other jobs that are available and how they align to the programs that we offer within our schools is important. Marcy talked about the team-based challenges or student competitions. So some of these can be done through our industry partners. Others are done through our student organizations, FFA, Skills USA, things like that. And then the last piece is internship, or I'm sorry, I'll skip the job fairs first, and then I'll go back to internships because I did see a couple of questions that came up through the questions there. For job fairs, we run a senior job fair in the spring for all of our students who are undecided as far as what they are going to do. Last year, we had over 60 plus colleges and employer partners with over 800 students come through that career or that job fair. So giving them a chance to see what jobs are out there, how they align, and then giving them those college opportunities as well for where they might want to go. The last piece there was internships. So working with our school district partners on offering internships. Previously, we had shifted from co-op to now internships. If we want to go to the next slide there, I think we got some stuff on that. Actually, 2 slides ahead for the internship. Sorry, I skipped ahead there. So internships, we had the shift from co-op, or what we had seen as an early release from school and many of our past, where students left school to go for a job. They could go work at McDonald's, they can work at a grocery store, any of the small businesses in their communities, and they were getting school credit for that. But now we have seen a shift toward internships. So making sure that those work experiences for students are aligned with their career aspirations. The minimums for those internship opportunities are 60 hours, and these have to be co-developed by the schools and the industry partners. We'll get into some of the questions there at the end, and I know I saw a couple of you put things in there about school credit and things like that. In our region, we want to work on getting students school credit for those. So either during the school year, they take the internship course, or during our summer school sessions, we offer that internship course, and students are out in the summertime doing those 60 hours minimum at each employer. This past summer, we had 9 different career fields represented, 47 employers. We had 150 students out for internships, and those were all paid internships. So those can come from different funding sources, through grant money, through local dollars, through business donations, things like that. And our goal here is to have students move from their internships into then an apprenticeship. We don't want to see it stop with that and go from there. We want to see them move in then to an apprenticeship program where available. I want to go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about how we do this. So we went out and through the EFE office here, we found different companies that wanted to offer summer internships. As I mentioned, some of these, the companies paid the students directly. Others, we reimbursed the companies for hosting interns, or we had one of our nonprofits who had grant dollars and donations from companies actually pay the students for their time. We paid students at a rate of $15 an hour, so $900 minimum for their internship process. When we came up, and the links are all there, and I'm sure Nate can send this out to everyone, we sent out a list of all of the different internships that were out there and how many jobs were posted. All of our internship companies had to sign an agreement or an MOU showing that right now, the big thing is that companies don't want to take students in if they're not over the age of 18 or if they don't meet certain requirements. But if students are in a program of study at their high school and you have an agreement between the business and the school districts, then the school's insurance will follow that student out while they're on site. So that's an important piece there. In our EFE office, we then sent out the application process for students. So they had to review the internship listings, and they had to go in and fill out a Google form saying which ones that were their first choice, second choice, third choice, and then they had to submit a resume to us to review. We then reviewed all those resumes. We got to if a company said they wanted 3, we would send them 5 to 7 resumes, have the companies review those. If they wanted more, obviously we'd send them more resumes. The companies then got a chance to either interview those students themselves, or they would review what we had given them and just say they would take the minimum number of students that we had sent them. This was important for us because now instead of parents calling and asking why we placed their student in one location versus another that may be closer to home, we can tell them that their students interviewed for these positions and that the companies actually chose them to go work in those areas. And then throughout the summer, we would follow up with those students. We would check on their placements. We would go out and visit the businesses, check in with the partners, check in with the students, make sure everything was going all right. You want to go on to the next slide there? I think we're on to questions and contact information. I saw a first question. I'll kind of hit this there. Work-based learning opportunities, how are they paid for? As I mentioned, grant dollars. When we have partnerships, we can use it for internship hosting fees. We have things that we have for our resume building workshops. We pay for those so the students can get their resumes prepared. We have companies that have donated money to support this. And then we also have companies that are paying the students while they're out there on site. So a couple different opportunities there for funding opportunities. And at minimum, the students have to receive school credit for those work-based learning opportunities for that to get counted. The next question I saw there, how do opportunities in healthcare work when there are so many regulations? We really worked with our community partners. So this was the second summer now that we have run a pharmacy tech internship. We were able to get students their license to be a pharmacy technician. And then we had on-site training that was outlined by the hospital. And then we also had hours in the pharmacy at the hospital that those students, they weren't working as full-time technicians. They were shadowing other people within the department. I think that's the big thing is we're not asking them to do the job fully. We're asking them to shadow in many of these opportunities. Another one we had was 10 students who did medical rotations. So they interned with 10 different departments at the hospital. And they rotated through 6 hours in each department over a 2-week period of time. This was kind of a rather tedious process to try to get that. We learned quite a bit in that we needed to build in some extra days so that in case a student was sick or missed, they were able to have makeup days at the end. I saw Renee, you put the question in there in the chat in each county. We'll send that map out. Thanks, Nate, for dropping that directory in there. It's not necessarily county. Like I share my county with another colleague, but her and I talk quite a bit on what we're doing within the county itself with all of that. And there we'll open up to other questions.
I was just going to add too, if you're a local WIOA, you should make connections with your EFE director. They don't overlap. There are, like I said, there are 53 EFEs in the state. And of course, I think there's about 22 of the local WIOAs. So some of you overlap. But when you look at this directory, you'll see what counties they cover. So it kind of gives you an idea of who to go to and who to talk to. But it's really important that you build that relationship. When we talk about the local needs assessment, we want the local WIOAs to be part of that to help the districts and the regions figure out where those high skill, high wage, in demand jobs are as we go along.
And I'm going to jump in here if the two of you don't mind, because I'd like to draw some important connections, I think, for our folks watching, especially in tying what you both talked about to how we develop and conduct outreach for youth apprenticeships or for pre-apprenticeships. So what you heard from Marcy is about these career clusters and these career pathways that every school and every district is going to be required to offer at least one of, is my understanding, correct, Marcy? So they're going to, and those include a work-based learning component. Those include those credentials. And so you have the schools in your area need to set these career pathways up. And so you have a prime opportunity to connect with your local school district to help incorporate pre-apprenticeship in the form of an internship or a youth apprenticeship in the term of a longer term training program with those schools. And one of the best ways to do that, I think, initially would be to connect to your Terry, to connect to your EFE director, because they have those employer relations already. And if an employer is already offering an on-the-job workplace experience, if they're offering job shadowing, that's a much easier get in terms of getting them to youth apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship than a company that's starting from scratch and working with the school district. So one of the things we always talk about in apprenticeship program development is leveraging the connections that we already have to industry, and your EFE directors are have some of the strongest partnerships with EFEs with industry. And so absolutely utilize that as a mutually beneficial relationship because Terry would love to place more of his students into the high quality roles that apprenticeships provide, and you would love to allow employers to have the opportunity to train up that talent. So if you take nothing else away from this, as it relates to work-based learning, as it relates to feeding participants from WIOA, connect with your school districts and your EFEs on the local level, because apprenticeships, much like everything else in work-based learning, require collaboration between all of our local partners. For those of you who are able to attend our apprenticeship boot camp last week, you may have experienced some of that collaboration. A lot of people came up to me and said, hey, the networking at this has been incredible, because they had never been in the same room as folks from their local community colleges or EFEs or school districts. And so taking that time, that investment of time with your school districts is just as important as the outreach you do to businesses or economic development. And so any further questions we have, feel free to drop those in the chat or come off mute and say them. But I do want to give a big thank you to Marcy and Terry for sharing this knowledge, because it's so crucial that we implement these partnerships with the infrastructure that already exists to support work-based learning in the state.
Yeah, Nate, as you mentioned, the one of the biggest things, right, is that I may have connections, right, with the company that the WIOA, the LWIA, office doesn't have. They may have a connection with another company that I don't have. They may have gone through, ISB with their champion, site there to get signed on. So it's really about sharing that information. I don't think anybody is withholding information from one another. We want to build and grow those, and see where we're at exactly with getting, like I said, getting students out there. But it's just sharing all that information to build on that.
If there are no more questions, I'll turn things back over to Elizabeth to close this up. Feel free, I believe I'm still screen sharing the emails for Marcy and Terry. I know they're happy to answer any questions you have. Check out the directory link I dropped in the chat to see who your local EFE points of contact are. Both those resources are going to be available on the Apprenticeship Illinois website, on our Workforce Partners page, along with the recording of this webinar. In addition, you'll be able to find their slide deck and that handout of that directory at apprenticeshipillinois.com/bootcamp, which contains all of the materials from last week's event. So if you weren't able to make it, I would hugely express that you should check that out, because lots of great resources about apprenticeship development and outreach to be found there.
And then really quickly, Nate, I look back through the questions. Somebody asked about the age minimums. Things to think of there is that when we have apprenticeship programs, that the age minimums go down to 16 years old when you have an approved apprenticeship program. So making sure that if it's an approved program, that's going to lower that age restriction down there. And your companies and your insurance companies can't argue that then. They have to accept that for the insurance companies. So that's an important piece to look at there.
Well, and also sorry, I keep hitting the button. Also, to add to that is the fact that just because maybe sometimes there's specific pieces of equipment that a student has to be 18 to be on, does not mean that you can't do an apprenticeship within that company in other areas for them to learn about different aspects. There's also the opportunities that there are careers that would not require that barrier that they could be engaged in, such as Terry had mentioned that the last time, there's accounting, or there's other areas within a business that somebody could do as an apprenticeship. So it's keeping that information or that thought alive. Right.
And so I want to share really quickly before we jump off here. This is our Apprenticeship Illinois Bootcamp 2024 page. For those of you who made it or those of you who weren't able to make it, Marcy and Terry were there. They knocked it out of the park, gave an incredible presentation that was so good we asked them to do a special encore today, and so we appreciate their time. You can check out the PowerPoints for all of our bootcamp sessions, as well as the handouts that were given. You can see down here the directory that I linked earlier, as well as Marcy and Terry's slides here, and a slew of other helpful links, including to our other Wednesday or Tuesday webinar playlist and a bunch of other resources we shared at the event. As always, you can drop on to Apprenticeship Illinois office hours through our Workforce Partners page, Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central.